Jim and Will. What have they been watching lately? They're husky, hairy, huggable homos. Movie Bears Podcast.
Hello all and welcome to the Movie Bears Podcast. I'm Brad Harris, and each week I'm joined by some of my favorite husky, hairy, huggable homos to chat all about films current or classic. And this week we are going current with the new film Free Guy, starring Ryan Reynolds. Ryan
Reynolds.
Mark Rylance? What? Ryan Reynolds is the name I was trying to get out. Should be an interesting question mark discussion. I'm a little curious how my co-host came down on this film. I can't wait to find out. Speaking of said co-host, you already heard from them, but let me formally introduce him. Jim Huliafico is on the show with us. Hey, sweetheart.
Hello, babe. I'm here and ready to go and talk about this fun movie with you guys, like I am every week.
Very excited to chat with you for sure. Also stoked to chat with the delectable William Lindis, who's here. Will, hello.
Hello, Brad and Jim. I'm really excited for this one. I don't think this is going to be a good episode. I think this is going to be a great episode.
For those of you who are not watching the video version of the show, you were missing Will's blue shirt guy realness right now. He's wearing the same exact color of blue shirt and a tie, exemplifying Ryan Reynolds for us. So good stuff. Well, Will, Jim, we got a lot to talk about with this film, I think. How do you guys feel about diving on in?
Yeah, let's open it up.
Yeah, let's power this thing up.
All right. So for anyone who is maybe new to the show, you're not familiar with our format. We are going to talk about Free Guy, spoiler free, for probably about 15 minutes before we open the lid on spoilers. So if you haven't seen the film yet, and maybe you're kind of on the fence, you want to hear some opinions, you are perfectly safe to join us for that discussion, and then we'll give you a fair warning before it's time to maybe step away and then come on back at the end for our plugs. But that said, here we go. Our discussion of Free Guy. All right. Fellas, speaking of guys, Tony is in the house with us. He says hello from Tampa. Hey, Tony. Welcome. Glad to see you.
Hey, Tony.
Hey, Tony from Tampa.
It's funny. We're watching The Sopranos right now, and every time I see your name pop up, Tony, I hear Edie Falco's voice saying, Tony.
I'm just worried that he's going to put a hit out on us.
I know, right?
So, Tony, don't do that. Don't do that.
Please don't do that. That would be bad. We don't respawn like certain other characters we're about to talk about. All right. Well, let's do this. Jim, if you don't mind giving us a brief introduction of this film, what is it? What's it about? What were your thoughts? And maybe talk a little bit about your experience seeing the film.
Welcome to Catbutt TV. All right.
Yep. Maybe talk a little bit about your experience seeing the film as well, especially, with this pandemic raging all over again. Would be interested to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, definitely. I'm excited to share them.
All right. Well, then, please do.
All right. So we're talking about Free Guy, this movie that came out right kind of in the middle of our summer. Anyway, Free Guy is about when a bank teller discovers he's actually a background player. That's known as an NPC, or non-playing character, to us hardcore gamers, by the way. He's in a super violent open world video game. Another term that us serious gamers know and use, of course. He decides to become the hero of his own story. one that he can rewrite himself in a world where there's no limits. He's determined to save the day his way before it's too late and maybe find a little romance with the coder who conceived him. So we did go to the movie theater to see this one. Who knows when our last actual movie in a movie theater is going to happen, but we made the value judgment that we were still relatively okay to go see a movie, all being vaxxed and looking at how many seats were sold and all that. And that's the kind of the thing, it's interesting that we have to kind of go through that process to decide to go see a movie, but we did. And guess what? I'm glad we did, because I really, really enjoyed this movie a lot more than I did. I think I had seen the trailer maybe one time, and it's one of those movies where the trailer gives you a lot, but it maybe gives you too much in terms of, not necessarily in terms of the story, but like it throws a lot at you. And during the trailer, I probably zoned out, and I'm like, oh my God, here we go. Another like video game movie. This is going to be terrible. But I ended up walking away thinking, wow, this is like the perfect summer popcorn fun movie. Like there's just no other way really to describe it. It's funny, of course, because it's got Ryan Reynolds in it, which we'll talk about a lot. It's action packed, but also with a little bit of something to say. So it says some things. It's probably not a deep message movie, but I think it's got some things to say, and we'll get into that a little bit too. What I really appreciated about it as a quote unquote video game movie, that it's not based, as far as I know, on an existing IP. So that kind of makes it kind of a novel concept in terms of video game movies. Because I'll be honest, I actually hate a lot of video game movies. They just don't really, video games aren't really my thing. I am not an expert video gamer, but I had a lot of fun with this movie, like a lot of fun. Ryan Reynolds is there I go again. Ryan Reynolds. Ryan Reynolds I think he's a fantastic comic actor, especially when he's not wearing a mask on his face. Actually, he did a movie several years ago called Voices, which I think is a really underappreciated comedic, kind of a comedy horror kind of movie. It's a thriller. It's really great, and he kind of channels a lot of that stuff here. He throws a lot of charm at us, and of course his comedic timing is funny, and I think the writing here is pretty good too for the kind of entertainment that this is, which is really light summer fun. But it, like I said, I think it has a lot more going for it than a lot of other action movies that are coming out this year. Anyway, I really, really like this film a lot, way more than I thought I was going to. This is a strong recommend for me. I think people should I think people should definitely consider seeing this movie. I'm not sure. Is it available out on streaming right now?
It's not at the moment. It's got a theater exclusive window, and then I think it's going to be on Paramount Plus.
Got it. Yeah. But yeah, look for it if you're not, certainly if you're not feeling comfortable going to a movie theater to check this one out, then definitely catch it when it does open up on streaming. It's certainly worth it, in my opinion.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your thoughts, babe. Looks like we've got a big recommend here from Jim, which surprises me a little bit. I can't wait to get into the free-flowing back and forth part of our conversation. Jim, I may have questions for you. But before we do that, Will, what did you think of Free Guy?
I think sort of like Jim, it was really hard to gauge what this movie was going to be like from the trailers. You never know if the premise is going to deliver on its promise, if we're going to see that kind of like breathe to life in a satisfying way, especially knowing that this is one that was a 20th Century Fox creation, which means that it was in production during the time that Disney bought Fox. So that impacts things, right? That impacts things. I really ended up liking this one. This was a lot of fun. Jim, you said that this is like the perfect like summer popcorn movie, and that's exactly what I got out of this one. I think that there were stakes, there were fun characters, fun action, but at no point did it feel so heavy or like serious that like it sort of took away from the fact that I was enjoying the experience. I think the closest analog that I would have to this is The Truman Show. This reminded me a lot of The Truman Show in a lot of positive ways. Character figuring out that the world that was their world is not actually the world, and that there's something much bigger beyond all of that. That's sort of like fishbowl syndrome. Even some of the like sort of looking to the camera and giving catchphrases things feels like it appears here. And I don't say that in a derivative way at all. Truman Show is one of my favorite Jim Carrey movies, and I think it tapped into something very special about what it is to sort of like consume media, consume television, and consume like the people in reality TV and whatever that was sort of big at the time. Well, now we live in an era where everybody's on Twitch and everybody is streaming and everyone is living in these virtual spaces. When you log into World of Warcraft or Final Fantasy 14 or any of these different games and you see millions of other players, I don't know, there's something that feels just as timely about this as The Truman Show felt then. Yeah, this is a recommend for me. Ryan Reynolds is charismatic. The whole movie, I think, comes together a lot better than it has any right to do. And I really enjoyed some of the supporting characters. We'll talk about them in a little bit more detail, but like Joe Keery from Stranger Things has a pretty interesting role here. I think he was buried in most of the marketing, and he's good here. He's good here. I really liked seeing him on screen. So yeah, this is a recommend for me as well.
All right.
Well,
what do we get from Brad? That's two likes.
That
two
is
really
two likes.
Yeah.
That is two really likes. Hey, before we get to me, we had asked Tony not to put a hit out on us, but Tony said I'd hit that and that and that. So personal hit list takes on a whole new meaning. Tony, we'd hit you too.
It's a very different type of mafia.
And Bobby Miller's in the house. He says, "Hey, MBP. Hey, Bobby. Always a treat to see you pop up, friend."
Hey,
welcome. Bobby. Also, Marco is watching Sopranos right now as well, so we are not the only ones. And Phantom Thieves 9 says hello from Canada. I'm trying to remember when we had a Canadian pop up last. Was it Adrian Charlie?
Probably. And also here we've got one who is a Persona 5 fan. So I see you. I see you.
Good taste. Good taste. Speaking of video games. Right. All right. So my thoughts on this film. I got to tell you, the trailer of this movie, I don't know. It looked like it could be fun, but it also looked like it could be awful. I was having PTSD flashbacks to Pixels, if you guys remember that movie, which came out. I don't know.
Regrettably.
Oh my God.
Right,
yes.
Right. So I'm like, this is either going to be a really fun movie or this is going to be Pixels all over again. And I just don't know what I'm going to get. I did my best not to read any reviews going into the film. I'd only seen, I think, the first trailer for the movie. So I was like, okay, I'm as fresh as I'm going to be going into this film. Let's see what happened. And I got to say, I know you guys were real big on this movie, but so was I. I really enjoyed this quite a bit. Sorry for the faux fake out there. I'm just going to say it. This is one of my favorite movies of the year so far. I realize we're only in August. There's a lot of year left. We haven't even hit, Oscar movie drop season yet.
We haven't got Dune yet. So,
right. But I had a ton of fun with this movie. I laughed out loud in several places. I even felt some heartstring tugs. And in a video game movie, that's a little, I don't know, interesting to experience. But it was a very cool premise. A little heavy on the Fortnite-iness, but I enjoyed a lot of the other love letters to, different MMOs. I don't think anything was like directly taken from any particular game franchise. But I mean, spiritually, there was a lot of things, like floating items or, scoreboards or quest boards or, whatever. It actually made me really nostalgic for when I used to play WoW, World of Warcraft. But I'm not giving Blizzard any of my money because, human rights stuff and recent stuff with how they treat their female employees. So I was like, well, what can I do then? But then I remembered a friend had mentioned Final Fantasy 14. And so I made a post about it on Facebook after seeing Free Guy. And other friends were like, oh my God, I saw Free Guy too. I totally want to play an MMO. So a bunch of us have started playing Final Fantasy 14. Who knows how long we'll play? I hear it's super casual. I don't want to have to play a video game like it's my job. So, but it's just been fun to hook up with a couple guys and run around in a virtual world. And one of the guys was looking for gear that was blue. He would only wear blue gear because he wanted to be the blue shirt guy of Final Fantasy 14. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. But for a movie to drive me back to an MMO, even if it's just 20 minutes here, 30 minutes there, I think that's a good thing. I think that's a positive influence, if you will. Jim, you might be like, I'm going to lose you for 3 or 4 hours a night to a game.
I'm not.
Good. I'm glad because I can't do that anymore. I remember playing games like Free City for 3 or 4 or 5 hours a night back when I was single and working on a graveyard shift and I had nothing else to do. But when you have a family and work, and I don't know how you do it. I don't know. But
yeah. By the way,
anyway,
Brad, you mentioned MMO. That's massively multiplayer
online
game from us, mega players to other people who may not know.
I love how you include yourself.
Google that. Yes, I just
MMORPG.
You played 35 minutes of World of Warcraft on the Movie Bears podcast.
We have video proof of it.
I think I killed a scorpion or something.
You probably killed 6 scorpions to turn them in.
Indeed. Anyway, this movie was a lot of fun. Ryan Reynolds was absolutely fantastic in this. There were also some fun Easter eggs that popped up. I don't want to spoil anything, so I'm going to just leave it at that for now. But I will tell you, if you are looking for a movie to go see in theaters right now, if you want to go to that matinee in the middle of the day when it's going to be you and 2 or 3 other people, whatever your safety bubble looks like, if you feel comfortable going to a movie, I would say this is the one to see. It's just a total blast. For those who don't want to go to movie theaters, totally get that completely. It is coming to streaming on Paramount Plus later on, but I think it has a few weeks of exclusivity before it does. So just keep an eye out for it. But yeah, this is a big win for me.
If you're in the mood for a 5-octave superstar earworm, this movie will give it to you.
Do 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 do.
Slightly unrelated question, Brad. Thaumaturgist?
Yes.
I knew it. I knew it. Because, Brad, I know the type of character. I know you well enough to know the type of characters you gravitate towards. That was just a guess, of all the different classes. I'm like, I bet he's trying to go Black Mage.
You nailed me completely. I'm a nuker. That's what I do.
Hit me, nail me. It's all the same.
I'm a white mage bard, so.
Oh, that makes sense too. Absolutely.
You mentioned the you'd only seen the first trailer. Have you gone back and watched the trailers afterwards?
I haven't yet. Are they pretty different?
Yes. So they've made 3 trailers, and the first one is a pretty standard trailer. The second one is sort of like a react video, but it's Deadpool sitting on a couch. It's Ryan Reynolds in his full Deadpool outfit with the character that Taika Waititi plays from Thor Ragnarok, and they're doing like a react video to it. And then the third one, it's a normal video, and then about partway through, it pauses, and then it goes over and a beefy character who shows up later in the movie does a full like talks about his workout routine and about how he got ready for the movie. They did some great marketing for this.
Wow.
Like I would say go back and watch them. I think you'll actually enjoy watching these trailers after the fact.
Awesome.
That's
Well, I
good
will
tip,
definitely
Will.
have to do that. Those sound fun. I'm really glad I didn't see them before the movie, though. For me personally, I think it would have maybe taken some things away, but I totally want to go back and follow up. Guys, Justin is with us, and Justin says, glad to hear the positive reviews for this film. Justin, I'm not sure if you've seen it yet, or if you were kind of on the fence, you weren't sure whether to see it or not. But yeah, more than just us have been giving it positive reviews. Film critics that I was sure would shit all over this movie are like, this is one of the most fun things of the whole summer. So yeah,
this is one that when we talk about recommendations, like last week we reviewed a movie that at least two of us really liked, but it's hard to make a recommendation because I think it will resonate with some people really well, and other people may not dig it, and so it's hard to make that recommendation. This is a movie where I have no problems or no qualms at all making a pretty broad recommendation. And I'm trying to remember, I know this is rated PG-13, right? As opposed to R. Like, the Suicide Squad was rated R, but I think, right? But this movie's rated PG-13.
Right.
And yeah, I would recommend this to kids down to a certain age. You know what I mean? That I think, there's some video gamey violence in this movie. That's no spoiler there, but I don't think the movie kind of languishes in its goriness at all or anything like that. And I think there's a pretty positive message in here at the end. And there's plenty of characters to for kids to maybe root for or whatever. And so yeah, I feel like more comfortable than I felt in a long time recommending a movie and recommending this one.
Yeah, the violence in this has sort of video game logic, which means it has sort of cartoon like bend and squish to it. Like when someone gets hit by a moving vehicle, it doesn't feel as though like, oh, they're going to pan over and we're going to see brains. We see like bounce, 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 and the character gets back up. As you would see if you were playing Fortnite or if you were playing, there's a lot of Grand Theft Auto in this as well. Like if your character got into a car accident and like had the little like ragdoll physics as you flew out, like then you would like respawn and keep playing. It had that sort of feel. It didn't. You're right. It didn't linger on the effects of the violence. It really just did it to show that the world was this weird, like violent, open world setting.
Right.
Yeah.
And Will, you mentioned that this one was reminded you of the Truman Show a lot. And believe it or not, the one movie that I thought about coming out of this movie was a movie we reviewed very recently, because I think this movie and that movie share a little plot DNA, and that is Space Jam 2. I mean, you have a villainous character who it represents kind of a conglomerate that is stealing game IP from a young developer, right? And so, like, in terms of its bones, I think it kind of. No, it's not the same movie. It's not the same quality of movie, but in terms of the way, kind of the story beat, the main driver of the plot, I think there's some shared things there.
It almost feels like, at first I didn't know if I was going to be on board for that journey with you, but I think that it's almost like if you take the two different writers' rooms and you say, okay, this room here, we want you to be cynical in the way that you address your IP. And here, we want you to have fun and explore the what ifs of what this scenario could be like, and then see which way those paths like diverge in the woods. I can see what you're saying there.
Yeah. Yep. young developer comes up with some cool video game thing, and some evil, villainous head of a conglomerate wants to steal it from them and reap everything that they get from it. Right?
And it will just to put this out there,
is that not what happens in both movies?
This is way better than Space Jam 2. Let's put that out there.
Brad, you're not on board. I could tell by your face.
From a quality perspective.
I can't really talk about it because of spoilers, but I think it's a thinly drawn connection at best. I see why you might think that, but I think I very much disagree on what you think Space Jam was about in terms of its plot. So
okay, all right, we'll talk about that.
To be fair, I think if you ask us what the plot of Space Jam was in 3 months, I don't know that I'd be able to accurately relive it. That's kind of where I felt like Truman Show was what sank in for me, because it was less the plot beats itself, but more like the theme, I guess. Like there's like thematic resonance there for me, about sort of like the possibilities of like world beyond your world.
Okay, I'll get on board that. And we'll talk about more in spoilers, but I have a little bit more to say on that.
Okay, all right. Well, speaking of spoilers, now seems like a logical time to make that jump, just to free ourselves from the shackles we've put around our own ankles. As hot as being shackled can be sometimes, we want to give ourselves room to talk. So, Jim, Will, are you ready for some spoiler reaction?
Yeah, absolutely.
Wait, hold on. Okay. Yeah, I'm ready.
All right, excellent. We are going to go ahead and open the floor up to spoilers for Free Guy. If you have not yet seen the movie, you value your innocence where the plot of the film is concerned, now's your time to step away for 19 minutes and 24 seconds. And then come on back for some plugs. If you are listening live, feel free to step away, make a sandwich, say hi to the family, then come on back here in a little bit. You're not going to want to miss our plugs. If you are listening to the magic of digital tape delay through Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, however you access your podcast media, feel free to use the time index in the handy dandy show notes and skip ahead as needed. That said, spoilers are fair game. Justin has a comment. He says, wasn't Free Guy ready to release prior to Space Jam 2? Hasn't it been ready for like a year now? And this was COVID delayed post-production, wasn't it? Or was it fully ready?
I don't know if it's so hard to tell exactly where things are, because even when you start seeing the trailers for a thing, usually it's not done with production, because once the trailers start, they've got some of the visuals out, but they're still buttoning down a few other things. That said, there was a marketing push for this one a year ago, which means even if it wasn't done, it was close to done. And so had COVID not hit, we would have been reviewing this, a year ago.
Yeah, he may be right. And for all I know, Space Jam 2 might have been delayed as well. I have no idea. Studios have moved around releases so much these days, it's hard to keep track of what was before what. And Justin, I don't want to harp on this, but I didn't mean to infer that Free Guy ripped off anything in Space Jam 2. I think it's just a coincidence that they decided to play in this kind of video game developer world a little bit, both of them. And so that's all I was saying. Not that Free Guy lifted anything from Space Jam 2. It just a coincidence, I think.
And we're probably going to see more stories in the future, not counting the fact that there's probably going to be a Free Guy 2 at this point. Not counting, maybe in 20 years there'll be another Space Jam. I don't know.
Another Space Jam 2.
Aside from all of those, I think that the world of video games has become so mainstream that you're going to see more and more stories that share some of that DNA. It exists inside of the video game. It exists inside of the code. It features Twitch streamers, whatever it happens to be. We're going to see that more and more. And to varying result, we're going to see probably a few more great things like this. We're going to see some real crappy ones too. I know, like we're and that's just kind of the train that we're on. I did personally, as someone who watches Twitch streamers myself, there's a section of this movie where we get to see a few Twitch streamers who got to be in the movie and play themselves, Pokimane and Jacksepticeye or two that I watch, and so it was fun watching them up on screen going like, oh, blue shirt guy mania sweeping the nation, and I was just like, oh, I watch her play Among Us, I liked that touch. But yeah, to your question, to your kind of point there, Justin, like we're gonna see so many more of these that are gonna feature exactly this type of thing that I think that it's going to be a little bit hard to kind of figure out which one's the chicken, which one's the egg. And I think it's more just sort of like, this is the hot thing right now. So producers know that, video games are going to be a moneymaker. So we're going to see more greenlit scripts with these elements.
I suspected that those were real Twitch streamers because I only know one Twitch streamer actually, and I was hoping he was going to be in the film, but Adrian did not get into the film, and I'm a little pissed. I'm a little pissed about that. Our friend Adrian Charlie from the Crow Show, but I thought they might have been real streamers. I just wasn't sure, but that was one of the questions I had after the movie, and both Brad and our friend Kevin advised me that they were real Twitch folks, famous.
To be fair, I didn't know any of them, but we sat through the credits, and the credits like showed, so and so as themselves. So, yeah.
There was a big stretch last year where. And Brad, this is around the same time that you and I played some Among Us together, but where that was like the big thing being streamed, and that's where I came across some of these and some of the video gamers that I watched playing that. So.
I want to talk a little bit about some of the Easter eggs that were in this film, and some of them were more subtle, some of them were very overt. I guess I hadn't been paying close enough attention when the movie came on, and we saw the what is it even called now? Is it 20th Century Fox? Is it 20th Century Disney? I don't even remember. I just know it had the that meant it was the Disney Fox like purchase thing.
Right. Yeah.
So I'm watching this movie totally not cognizant of that, and all of a sudden a Captain America shield shows up and the Avengers theme. And then he has a Hulk fist and like punches the beefed up version of himself. And I was like, whoa, how did they get Disney to go along with that? That was really fun.
Yeah. But we saw that. And then and they did the thing that I need movies to do more of. And that's references aren't jokes. References can be the setups to jokes. So in that case, we see, he like realizes that he's got his powers back, his video game powers. And so he uses the Captain America shield. He does the Hulk fist and all of that. But then it cuts over to a quick shot. And this was the punchline. And everyone's watching this on TV because it's being streamed all over the world. And it's just Chris Evans sitting in a diner watching it going like, hey, or something like that. Yeah. That was the punchline. That was a good punchline. It wasn't just a reference. Like it wasn't just the shield. It was that little stinger at the end. So I appreciated that a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Babe, I thought you were going to come out of your seat when the lightsabers came out.
Oh, I mean, something came out of my seat. It wasn't my whole body, but might have been my nerd boner.
Yeah, that definitely. That was another great little Easter egg. Although, I don't know, it's very, that was a very overt Easter egg.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's what I appreciate about it is if you play a game like Fortnite, okay? If you play a game like Fortnite, they're constantly doing these like Dead by Daylight. I know from watching Adrian play. A lot of these games do this where it's its own game that exists in its own world with its own lore, but then they'll do these partnerships with different studios. So for a while in Fortnite, you could play as or against like Thanos, and like because it was like a tie-in to some of the Infinity War stuff. When you're playing Dead by Daylight, you can play as the Ghostface killer from Scream, or you can play as Freddy Krueger, because all of those licenses have tied in. So what I'm getting at is, in this free city game that exists within this world, of course they would have done some tie-ins of some type. Of course someone would have been able to have like spent $4.99 of real money for the Captain America booster pack, where they could get the Captain America shield or whatever it is. So like, as much as it felt like, oh yeah, you know, this is Disney referencing Disney within a Disney movie, it was also, yeah, cool. It makes sense here. It actually checks out and works.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it reminded me a little bit of Ready Player One in that sense, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like in Ready Player One, it's a mashup of all these different IPs because it's a virtual world, and of course you'd have a DeLorean as the skin for your mount or whatever, you know. So it was really great to see some of these things pop up here, and I have played exactly 12 seconds of Fortnite and realized it was not for me. I definitely recognize a lot of I think just Fortnite battle royalisms, you know, within this game. I was curious, Will, because I've never played Overwatch, but does Overwatch have some similar themes in terms of like is it a battle royale kind of game?
Overwatch is more of a, I don't know if this might be getting into the weeds. I don't know if you ever played like Team Fortress Classic or anything like that. It's a team versus team 6v6 shooter with like point objectives where you have to like capture a space or move a payload or something like that. The closest thing to something like this would be Fortnite, the open world like Grand Theft Auto stuff, even stuff like PUBG, which was kind of popular right before Fortnite sort of like swept in and took the battle royale thing. But yeah, that the thing that most matched the battle royale thing that you said about Fortnite was it felt like the few times that I've played that, because I also am trash at it and it's not for me. And I feel like I don't have like the time to get as good as like the 12-year-olds who are just absolutely stomping me when I tried to play it.
Which was so awesome about this movie. I just want to point out, like they would show the avatars of these people in game as like these big beefy like hellions or bombshells or whatever, and then it would cut to like the actual player and it's like a 12-year-old girl and she's like, I told you to fucking smoke him, and I'm just like
Oh my
dying.
God.
It was so good. And the other thing that I liked about it was like whenever I play those games, at least for me, it can be overwhelming, especially when there's like a lot of action happening all around at once. Like you'll see like two people in like one of those like building tower duels over here, and then people shooting here, and then a guy comes flying up over a Jeep over here. And I felt like in the background, of course, this was like a more over the top, like focalized version of it, but I still got that. Like at any given time, you would just be like, they would be walking with some coffee or they'd be doing something and a guy would be zip lining and rocket launching into a building to do his quest. And another person would run up and just like punch an NPC because that was probably the quest that they had to do there. And like, dude, that's what it must be like to live in Vice City or to live in one of those worlds.
I gotta ask, Will, there's a scene where Ryan Reynolds and his cop friend are walking and drinking coffee, and in the background, I don't know if you saw this, but there's a guy running around on top of a flagpole and jumping up and down, and I'm like, oh my God, I've totally done that.
It's almost like a glitchy thing, right? Like it was almost like a glitchy thing.
It could be a glitchy thing, or it could be like there's times where you're like, when you're playing a video game and you're not ready to do the next thing. Sometimes you're just like on like voice chat with some friends and you're waiting to like get ready to do some stuff, or, you know, you just did some missions and you're just kind of like, I don't know, waiting for something to finish microwaving, but you don't want to log out, whatever it happens to be. So you'll sometimes just find weird things to run and jump on. Like, oh, I wonder if I can like jump off of this mailbox up onto that flagpole. I wonder, like there's in WoW, there is a mail, like one of the banks, and it has like some benches and these like little like like the like the little roped off sections. But if you jump just right, you can jump from bench to bench onto the pole, onto the bench. I've spent hours of my life just chatting with friends doing that exact same loop. I saw people in the background of this movie like walking into a wall, but like still walking, like, you know, they were like auto running and messing up. You know, like all of that, like, you know, it's like all those little touches are, on the one hand, they're obvious, but on the other hand, they are good touches that they were included as they were. And they also, since it was in the background, like we never saw that happen to like Guy himself. Like we never had that sort of weird stuff happen, which I feel like would have taken away from the movie, because this was a story about how human this artificial intelligence, this character was becoming. And we got to experience that without it being like, it's weird. And we talked about all these video gamey things, but his life and his personality never felt too video gamey. And that was really crucial to making this movie feel good to me.
Hey guys, I was looking up the director of this because it's Sean Levy, who I guess, I don't know where I've been the last freaking several years, but the name kind of stuck up on me because it didn't really stand out. I'm like, who is this guy, Sean Levy? And I looked up his IMDb and I'm like, whoa, I was floored by this guy's resume. Like he's a producer and director on Stranger Things. He's got like 60 producing credits, several directing credits, and, you know, including Stranger Things and a few other stuff. I mean, he's produced everything from like Arrival to The Spectacular Now, you know what I mean? Movies that we've seen several years ago. So he's been around a while, and seems to be a big player. And it's interesting that he would be the director of a movie like this, you know, with Ryan Reynolds. So I don't know what the connection is there, but I also noticed that he's going to be directing a remake of Starman. I didn't even know there was a remake of Starman in the works, but he's got like 20 upcoming projects listed, some of which sound pretty interesting.
One of the things that I think most sort of like matches for him for this type of material. So the movies that he's directed have predominantly been comedies, and the ones that I feel like probably most prepared him for this, he did all of the Night at the Museum movies, and so all of those movies are about this sort of like secret world that exists, and sort of like the over the top like shenanigans that can happen when that secret world that exists butts up against the real world. I think this is a stronger iteration of that. No shade against the Night at the Museum movies, but I feel like this definitely feels like a refinement of what he was going for there.
Yeah, that's interesting.
I'm curious what you guys thought of the gun violence message with this movie.
I mean, as I said before, you guys know that I'm somewhat sensitive to gun violence in movies, I guess. And the beginning of this movie, I'm like, oh, here we go. It's a bank robbery scene, guys with big guns coming in, blasting away. And by the end of the movie, I think I was fairly satisfied with how it was handled in this movie. First of all, as we said, that a lot of the gun violence here is more comic booky or cartoony, I guess you could say. Yeah. A lot of them didn't even look like real guns. They're like space ray guns and stuff like that they had. And there was a message at the end that was specifically stated in a kind of I forget what we call it, when the hero gives his big speech right at the end to everybody. He talks about gun violence and how we have a problem with gun violence. And at least it was acknowledged. I won't say it was fully addressed, but at least it was acknowledged by the movie, which I give it credit for. So I think it was handled fairly well. I mean, I know in today's day and age in America, rampant, the more gun violence you have, maybe sometimes the bigger audience you have. And that's, I think, what bothers me about the whole thing. But I don't think this movie's put its gun violence out front I think its action was out front, its story was out front, its characters and its comedy was out front, and then maybe you have the kind of the action that revolved a little bit around gun violence. But a lot of the action did not really revolve around gun violence. I mean, there's some stuff that happens at the climax of the movie, none of which really involves a gun. So that's cool too.
The guns were here to sort of showcase just how bad this world that these NPCs had been forced to live in actually was. And I think that I could probably make a pretty compelling argument for the fact that this is a movie about the idea that, hey, if we all work together and try really hard, we can build a world that doesn't have these types of things in it.
Yep.
So to hit to hit the point on the message, I think that they, without saying that exact thing, they kind of say it, but without like maybe saying it as like bluntly as I did just there. I think they do kind of like pave a different world, sort of like a better world.
What did you think of it?
Well, I appreciated the message a lot, and I like that it was half played for laughs, half serious. Like as he's making his speech to rile up the NPCs to like take a stand, he's like, in the real world, they don't have this kind of problem with guns. And she's like, well, no, actually we do. It's a really big problem. We're really embarrassed about it as a country. It's awful. And he's just like, yeah, that sounds bad. I'm just like, I loved it. I thought that was such a great way to do that. And you're absolutely right. By the end of the film, the world that Free City, I guess, was built on, the IP of the Millie character, and I forget the guy's name, but that world still exists. Keys, thank you. It kind of spins off. It becomes its own thing. All of the NPCs get to go live in that world and be happy. And I don't know. I thought it was cool, like seeing the new game world where it's not people getting shot up and things blowing up. Like you have a unicorn running through the streets of a city. You have people flying on dragons. You have prismatic butterflies, and I don't know. It was, I don't want to say hippy dippy, but like it was a nice, refreshing way, I think, for the story to go on.
Yeah, there was some fun stuff in there. I mean, I think wasn't even there like a unicorn rainbow punch or something that happened during the big fight scene? Didn't he whip out like a big unicorn fist or something? And hit the guy
I think he changed his lightsaber to like a unicorn's like
club,
like the thing that kids have. It's like a horse head,
hobby horse,
like a pole. Is that what it's? Well, no, not the one that you rock on. It's just it's just a pole with a horse head that you put between your legs and pretend you're riding a horse. I think it was that, but a rainbow unicorn.
And they, just to sort of like put another lampshade on it, the color on it was the sort of the same color as the Fortnite llama. So I think they were able to sort of double dip, like, and sort of like say, well, yeah, here's another homage without it being like a direct homage since we don't have this IP.
Yeah. Speaking of dip, it was great to see bubblegum ice cream show up in this movie. I can't remember the last time I've seen bubblegum ice cream in a film. Two thoughts on that. A, I really want some fucking bubblegum ice cream now. B, that scoop on top of the waffle cone was so perfect, it looked like the head of a penis.
Oh, wow.
I
wasn't thinking that, actually.
Well, but I always have dick on the brain, so...
I have to say, that was such a broad left turn there. I was like, oh, yeah, ice cream. Whoa. Yeah, it looked the way. So it looked the way that like when you play a video game and you get the pixel perfect ice cream cone that's made in game, it looks like that. And I also super appreciated as they're walking and having the ice cream, she says, oh wait, you can taste this? Because for a moment I forgot that she's like, oh yeah, she's playing it on the computer. So she's, she just hit like /eat or something like that, and her character is, but I appreciated that a whole heck of a lot for them to be able to like always like put these little reminders like, oh yeah, she's actually not like, it's not like Ready Player One where they like zap into the Matrix. She's sitting at a computer in a coffee shop in her apartment, just like doing that in her sweats.
Yep. Yep. And I want to talk a little bit about, something about the relationship between Ryan Reynolds and his friend Buddy was like so great in this movie. I just thought it was a really sweet friendship that they had. It wasn't more than that, but it's sometimes it pushed that envelope of friendship a little bit where like, okay, these guys are really like, have an affinity for one another. Right. I mean, a really pure friendship. And I thought that was great in the movie. And I thought, who played Buddy? Lil Ray Howery, is that his name?
Lil Ray Howery, yeah.
I don't know if I've maybe seen him in other films and not taken much notice, but
you would have
I
seen
thought
him in
really
Get
good.
Out. Get Out was one that you had
Get
read.
Out?
He was the
Yes.
friend in Get Out.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I thought he was really good. Taika Waititi shows up in this as the villain. I love Taika Waititi behind or in front of the camera. I just like his comic sensibility, and I bet you he definitely brought some of his like his zhuzh like to that character, right? He kind of the way he's played one of those like boss characters who's very authoritative but is also stupid at the same time. And kind of not knowing exactly what he's doing but being very forceful about it. And yeah, I thought it was really, really good. And I always like to see him show up in movies.
Listen, I never thought I would get a scene of Taika Waititi taking an axe to a whole room of servers. So I appreciate the movie for giving me that visual.
I also want to say
you got
thank
something
you.
against servers?
Some days, yes. I appreciated seeing Channing Tatum's one of those guys who he, for being such like a kind of like a traditionally like handsome guy, right? Sort of like Ryan Reynolds. He's been leaning a lot into comedy with some of his roles lately, and I've appreciated that. Seeing he showed up very briefly as Revengeman Buttons, which by the way is an amazing gamer tag that like it's one of those ones when you hear that you're like, well, dang it, that's one that I can't think of now. It's so perfect. But he was only in the movie for like a couple of minutes, and he absolutely sold those couple of minutes, especially when he started doing like the little Fortnite dances and stuff. Like it was so good. It was so good.
Yeah, I think we turned to each other in the movie and like, hey, that's Channing Tatum.
Is that Channing Tatum?
When was the last time we saw Channing Tatum? In a movie that we noticed. It seems like. Yeah, go ahead, babe.
I think the last movie I saw him in, because we got a trailer for the new Kingsman movie, and I think it was the last Kingsman movie we saw him in, which was that 2016, 2017?
2017. He did that and Logan Lucky, and then it's been some like voice acting since.
Yeah.
It's great to see him back. I mean, the guys we mentioned, Ryan Reynolds and his charisma, but I think Channing Tatum's got a lot of it too. And I hope we get to see more from him soon.
When he was trying to put Buddy's gun in his mouth and he was like, "Give it to me, Daddy," I was really turned on. Weirdly.
Yeah.
I could have clocked that about as well as clocking you as playing a thaumaturgist.
You're like, oh, Brad's gonna love that.
That's a Brad line.
Oh goodness. Well, fellas, what final thoughts do we have at this point on Free Guy?
We didn't mention the Mariah. We referred to it, but the Mariah Carey song. I know, babe. You wanted to listen to it right away when we got out of the movie.
I did. And Jim's like, "No, we're not putting that on in the car." I felt like a 10-year-old asking Dad to put music on in the car for me.
What a killjoy! Aww. I should have just put it on. I promise we can listen to it tonight if you want.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, as soon as
the moment's gone.
The damage has already been done.
You know what? It's not though, because Brad, if you look to your left, there's a health pack. There you go. That'll fix that damage.
The health pack is my water bottle, apparently.
There you go. Yeah, that song's an absolute earworm. There's a lot of fun visual elements in this movie. Just the way the video gamey power-ups and the way that the heads-up display looks in the world. Yeah, this is a movie that looks good, feels good, enjoyable to watch. You know, it sticks with you enough, but doesn't stick with you so much that it feels weighty. I think it's perfect for it's the perfect like midsummer movie. So yeah, it's hard to recommend to people to go out and watch this in theaters because of everything that's happening right now. So if your area is not safe, you don't have a way of doing that, by all means, like take a rain check on this one. But if you are in a situation where you can go see it, or if you can't, just watch it as soon as it becomes available. This one, all of us liked it quite a bit, and I struggle to think who this movie would not be for.
Right. And I did, of the four, looking at the credits after the movie, of the four big name voice actors that appeared in this movie, albeit mostly briefly, I did get one right near the beginning of the movie. I did pick up on Hugh Jackman as a masked player in the alley. He's listed as, but we also had Dwayne Johnson, Tina Fey, and John Krasinski doing voices in this movie. So again, we talked about Easter eggs. There's some right there, and that's one of the things I kind of like to do in movies is kind of pick out voices, mostly for animated movies, obviously, but in these movies, when you have characters that are either in costume or somehow obscured, guessing their voices can be fun.
Well, I didn't realize it was Tina Fey, but it was so much fun to see the mom vacuuming in the background, and she's like, "You're my son, and you're 22, still living at home. My vacuum is, and my word is God." You know, that was hilarious. It does make me wonder, though, is the like 20-something guy still living at home playing video games while his mom takes care of him thing? Is that super true in real life? Do we think, in general?
I mean, I think that it's definitely like a hyper exaggeration of a real thing. You know, in this case, he's a super big Twitch artist who's like, he was big enough to have an audience that he was live streaming to and interacting with in that moment. He's well known and has this giant like stash within the game. So, but at the same time, like, his mom's like vacuuming right behind him. That's obviously set up for comedic effect. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of people who are still in their 20s and are still living at home and still playing games, and and whether it be that they play it some or they play it a lot, whether it be their parents get it or they don't, I think that's a very common occurrence. Just again, hyped up. I mean, it's a comedy, so of course they're going to play up the comedy at the moment. I
mean, hey, that 20-something gamer that lives at home and plays games all the time is something we can all aspire to, right? I mean, come on, there are benefits to that lifestyle.
I mean, there was a whole section in the middle of the movie where we saw all of those Twitch streamers, and these are all people who are predominantly in their 20s who have made a living. And I'm talking combine all of our annual salaries into theirs type of killing. The people that showed up in this movie, they're all well taken care of through their streaming channels,
making those Twitch dollars.
To that point, is that something to aspire to? Being able, being in your 20s and that like successful in your field? Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right. Well, that's Free Guy. Definitely something that we all enjoyed. If you stayed for the spoiler section, but you haven't seen the movie yet, there's I don't know. I feel like there's 90% of things we still haven't talked about with this film yet. So there's a lot there that you could still enjoy if you want to go back and watch it. We hope that you do. But Jim, Will, how about moving on to some plugs?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've
All
been
right.
missing some plugs the last few weeks, so I'm going to get about 30 of them in now, if you don't mind.
Real quick before we do, because my phone just went crazy on me, we have a giant thunderstorm that is coming our way.
Yes.
Yeah, in about 20 minutes, Jim, it's supposed to hit. But if you hear loud thunder booms in the distance, don't worry, we're okay. But yeah, let's get some plugs done before we potentially lose power. Will, what have you got this week?
I've got just one, and this is sort of the opposite of the movie we just reviewed, in that I think we just reviewed a movie that is for everybody, or at least for most people, general audiences. I'm going to talk about one that is going to be for a very, very, very narrow wedge of people. And if you fall in this wedge, you're going to love this movie. If not, you're probably going to hate it. And that's okay. Polarizing movies are good. This movie is called Annette. It is a new movie by Leos Carax. He's the guy that did Holy Motors and Tokyo and a few other things. This movie stars Adam Driver, and it stars Marion Cotillard. And they are two very successful people within their arenas. She is an up-and-coming opera singer. He is a sort of like an edgy stand-up comedian. And the two of them start the movie in this relationship, and they soon have a kid, and the disparity in their careers starts to cause some issues for them. But the movie very much follows not just that, but also the daughter who, when we get to her in the story, has a kind of a special gift. This movie is abstract and weird in some of the ways that it presents everything. You should know that this movie is a musical. This movie is almost entirely sung. And with all of the music being written by, if you've heard the band Sparks, and if you haven't, the band Sparks is great. There was a really good documentary about them by Edgar Wright this year, but this was their pet project and has been for years, writing this musical. There is a very, very odd choice that happens maybe about a third of the way in the movie that will completely alienate a lot of audiences. It pays off by the end, and really comes back around. This is one of those ones while watching it, I kept thinking, like, do I like this? Am I enjoying this? And then once I saw the way they wrapped up the bow on everything, I was like, okay, yeah, actually, I very much like this. But I had to be patient with it, and I had to sort of let the movie hit me on its terms instead of like trying to expect it to hit me on mine. The movie is called Annette. Again, it's a musical starring Adam Driver, but that's not going to be as broad an appeal as it might sound. But if you like surrealist movies, if you like movies that have a message, but it's sort of like presented in sort of abstract form, if you love good visuals and good storytelling, I think this is an absolute win. But again, not for all audiences. It's Annette. Check it out. It's in theaters now and will be Amazon Studios created it. So that means it'll be available on Amazon here in, a few weeks.
Rock on.
Cool.
Awesome.
Cool.
Thanks so much, Will.
Very cool.
Appreciate that. Jim, what have you got this week?
Well, I am going to switch gears also. I watched several documentaries, and being a documentary guy, go figure, I'm drawn to them. But I'm going to talk about one here that I think might have the widest appeal, especially to movie fans, like us. This one is called Val, and it's basically about Val Kilmer. It's a documentary about Val Kilmer's life, actor Val Kilmer. Probably best known as playing Doc Holliday in Tombstone, playing in Iceman and Top Gun. So some very iconic and well-known roles. I've always thought Val Kilmer was a fascinating actor, but this movie takes a really deep dive into his not just like, oh, here's all the movies that Val Kilmer did. This is really about the man Val Kilmer and his life and his family life and his personal life. He recently had suffered the effects of throat cancer and basically lost the ability to speak. So he has a breathing tube, a feeding tube now. So in terms of like acting, that kind of faded away for him at that time. And he's been focused on family and stuff. The other thing that was amazing about this movie is that Val Kilmer, when he was starting out as an actor, was a very prolific and avid proponent of videotaping everything. He always went around with a video camera on movie sets, in acting from the time he was in acting school. So he's got all this archive of his life that he's created on videotape. And a lot of that is in the movie. Man, this is a really great documentary. This one is on Amazon Prime right now. So if you got Amazon Prime Video, this one is within your subscription, no extra fee. I think this is worth watching. One of the great actors of our time, maybe an enigma to some, but this movie definitely humanizes him to a great degree, and it's great to see the kind of the person behind the characters that he played. So this one's called Val. It's a documentary about Val Kilmer. It's on Amazon Prime. I strongly recommend it.
All right. Excellent. Well, thank you so much for sharing your plug as well. For me this week, we didn't get a chance to talk about this on the show a couple weeks ago when we originally planned, because we had some scheduling stuff come up and my work has been crazy. And anyway, we did not get to talk about this, but I just want to give a quick plug to Masters of the Universe Revelation on Netflix. As a giant He fan, as they're called, a He-Man fan, I was very much looking forward to Masters of the Universe Revelations coming out on Netflix, of course, by showrunner Kevin Smith. I will say that it's had a bit of a mixed review. The show was early on billed as a direct sequel to the 1980s animated series, and it takes some liberties and does different things and changes whole character backstories, and a lot of people were up in arms about it. And then it was kind of walked back as not being a direct sequel, but more of a spiritual sequel. And if you look at it through that lens, I think that solves a lot of the problems that a lot of folks had. This version of He-Man has an amazing physique, wonderfully drawn. All of the characters are just beautiful. The animation is absolutely gorgeous. This takes much more of the focus and puts it on some of the supporting characters rather than He-Man himself. So it was kind of neat to see some of these characters who, were around in the old series, but maybe didn't get to have the spotlight as much, get an opportunity to have that. So very cool series. It's fun. It's beautiful. It's a little dark and gritty, which is a bit of a departure from the old He-Man cartoon. Plus, it has Lena Headey, Cersei herself, as Evil Lynn. So much goodness there. Great to have her playing such an iconic character. Mark Hamill is here playing Skeletor. Really, really great cast. So anyway, Masters of the Universe Revelations is on Netflix right now. The first half of the first season is what's available. The second half is coming. So if you make your way through just, the first few episodes that are available and you're like, oh my God, this is it. This is the end. No, more is coming. I don't think we have a release date yet that I've seen, but supposedly it's dropping sometime before the end of the year. So maybe it'll be a Christmas present. I don't know, but I'm looking forward to it. So there you go.
Good pick, Brad. This is one that I wasn't sure what I was going to expect going into it, with Kevin Smith being the helmsman on it. He's good at capturing nostalgia, but I wasn't sure how well he would do it translating these characters and translating these stories. And it was a huge win for me. I loved this so much that I marathoned it over the course of a day. Like I couldn't not. So yeah, good pick.
Thank you. Yeah, we marathoned it over the course of its 2.5 hour runtime. We watched it in our projector room, and we were just going to watch like 1 or 2 episodes. And Jim was like, "Nope, let's put on the next one. Yeah, go ahead and watch the next one. Let's just do it." And babe, I don't know if you were trying to protect me from spoilers or you were enjoying watching it, but whatever your reason, thanks for doing
Why
that.
not both?
Because so anyway. Well, folks, I think that is a wrap for us this week. We'll be coming at you, of course, with more movie goodness in the coming weeks. But before we say au revoir for the evening, let's let people know where they can find us if they want to chat about movies or whatever between now and our next recording. Jim, where can people interact with you online?
Mostly on Twitter at my handle at JJP Out West, all one word, my initials, and then Out West. That's where I like to, tweet about movies and read about people's reaction to movies and so forth. There's a lot of great stuff out there on Twitter to counterbalance all the shit stuff that there is out there on Twitter. So you just got to find the good stuff and cherish that. You can also find me on Facebook under my name, Jim Pugliafico. It's all right here for those of you watching.
Yes, if you can see the video right now, you've got it all on your screen. Will, how about you? Where can people interact?
You can find me on Twitter. My handle there is at whatever cove. You can find me on Facebook. Just look for William Lindis. Send me a message first so I know who you are. You can also follow me on Letterboxd. If you look for William Lindis there in the search function, you should be able to find me. Just give me a follow. I'd be happy to follow you back.
All right, excellent. And you can find me on Facebook. Just look for Brad Harris. I'm the one who likely has Chub Chaser Bear friends in common with you. You can also find me on the Twitters at iBradPro, like iPad Pro, but iBradPro. It's clever. It's a pun. Ha! You can also find me on Letterboxd there as well. It's been a great show. Thank you so much to everybody who hung out with us in the live chat. We didn't get to read every comment on air. Lamar, oh my gosh, I just saw you, said hello. So good to see you. Thanks for dropping in, everybody. We will see you all next time. Thanks for making us part of your daily commute, your walk with the dogs, wherever you listen to us. We appreciate that you choose us as hopefully a quality podcast in your repertoire. So thanks for supporting our show, and we look forward to seeing you next time. Goodbye, everybody. Take care.
Yeah. Don't just have a good day. Have a great day.
Bye-bye.